Hello, everyone. We're back today with two guests that are one you're probably familiar with, Miss Lisa, and then we have Miss Tessica with us as well. Our topic today is on autism, or what,
The spectrum.
being on the spectrum.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you both will educate me. I do have a few things to say based on some experience with my students.
Mhm.
So for me, I will be learning, and I'm sure a few others as well. What I have come to realize is that this is kind of different for everybody. It's a different experience. So I'm looking forward to the two of you kind of educating me, educating the audience, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
So, Miss Jessica, you want to start since you have the smaller ones.
Mm.
So, what challenges do you face when it comes to your boys?
Mm.
Challenges. A lot of challenges that I have, you know, from the time they were diagnosed all the way till now.
When were they diagnosed?
Both of them were diagnosed at the age of 3.
Really?
My oldest is 6. My youngest is 3. Yes. Most kids usually around the age of 3 to 5 is when they get diagnosed with autism, but doctors and pediatricians are now starting to diagnose younger,
Mm-hmm.
around 15 months.
Yes.
15 to 18 months now is whenever they're, starting to get diagnosed. But most challenges, I think, is having to be pushy to get what I need for my children. So, with the school systems, you have to constantly, call, do meetings,
Yes.
go in person if it's an in-person meeting, and you have to, voice your opinion quite often because they're going to want you to do what they want you to do.
Oh, yeah.
For example, they wanted to put my youngest in one school in a specific program that I knew nothing about. And so I really had to fight with them, and I had to make several phone calls through the school board. I don't want him in this program. I want him, in this program that I'm familiar with. I don't want him at this school because I don't know anything about this school. I want him in this school,
So the resources are a problem.
Yeah.
Being able to access?
Yeah, here and there it is. Yeah, you really have to be pushy.
Absolutely.
So there was a scenario, and that will kind of connect to my next question. So the students had a scenario where there was a simulation, and this child was 2 years old. He had GI issues, and the reason why he was actually in the hospital was because he had some bruises, but he also was borderline failure to thrive. So the problem became the father, who, of course, mom and dad is hands-on, but the problem was dad had less patience.
Yeah.
So DCF was doing their checks, their follow-ups, because this child had bruises. So mom said, well, he falls a lot, But on the other hand, dad was in a class for, I wouldn't quite say anger management, but it was a class to help him be more patient, but he didn't feel that he needed that, right? Although he had been in it and felt that it kind of helped. So there was some resistance there. So overall in history, whether it's the elderly or children who have developmental issues, there can be a lack of patience because you are accustomed to the norm, right, so to speak. Whatever that is, because it is going to be different for everyone, but some people find it harder to deal with, oh, you can't dress yourself, oh, or you learned that last week, why can't you do it this week? The continuity right? So it creates a situation, and then in this simulation, there was two other children, and mom was like, "Well, I don't know what to do. We have been focusing so much on Jacob that our two kids, it's like they don't have parents."
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, the father, I think, was moved out of the home because while they didn't want to say, apparently he handled, quote, the child a little too rough, right? So good people would appear to be not so good. And then when you look at social media, I was watching this one thing because the lady, the way that they initiated it, like she grabbed that young man and it's like in his face, and he was about 13 or so. And the comments were, "Good job, mom. When they are autistic, you have to do that. You have to let them know." So I was like, okay, I don't really get it, but I'm sure that at some point, you know what works,
Mm-hmm.
while other people on the outside can look and say, "Oh my God, that is abuse," you know. So it's like the scale moves different places for different people depending on what the situation is, right? Um, so would you say patience is a thing in your home, or how do you manage that, the repetition of repeating yourself, or the child is overwhelmed, but you may be overwhelmed too because we love our kids and we're going to do what's best for them, but sometimes we get overwhelmed too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how you manage that.
With me, one thing I would say is it's okay to walk away if you need to. Go in the other room, go in the bathroom, take 5 minutes. It's okay to walk away. With children on the spectrum, special needs, intellectual disabilities, there's going to be a lot of repetition. You are going to have to repeat yourself, and you have to keep up with it. That's the only way they learn, and the only way they're going to get it. But it's absolutely okay to take a moment for yourself to recoup, regulate yourself, regulate your emotions, because they can feel how you're feeling.
Exactly.
They can sense, they can read your body language, and they hear your tone. Whether they can speak and advocate for themselves, whether they're nonverbal, whether you think that they don't understand anything at all, they see it, they hear it, and it does
And they
register
feel
with
it,
them.
yes. I agree with that.
Me too, wholeheartedly.
So your son is older now. What was that like for you from the diagnosis on up?
Well, Tessa, praise God, has a more advantage with all the resources they have now and all the information they have now. But it's that to said, no one knows where people. You can collect as much information and education as you can, and some of it is right. But I found now it seems to be a money yield. Autism is very real. The spectrum is very real. Ray, my son, he's 31. He was diagnosed at 18. That was in 1994. So there was nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing. The first thing when he got diagnosed with my husband was in denial. So that was the hardest challenge with being in denial. So I had to kind of cultivate him as well. And when you talk about that young man with maybe not anger issues, it was probably more frustration. Let's go through that. We go through a frustration. But having a child with autism, let's face it, we all special needs.
That's how I
One way or another.
We all special needs, absolutely. So that normalcy that I talked about, there's no such thing as normal because none of us, not one of us, is normal. We all human beings, right? But with Ray, he had epilepsy as well, but he was diagnosed at 18 months, and they didn't know what they were talking about because no one knew. But there was something back then. It wasn't even a spectrum. It was just autism, not otherwise specified. Autism NOS. I don't know if they still have that. But we were told that he would never develop past the age of 3, socially, mentally. He would never speak. They told us a lot of stuff. But I am a child of the king. So you can say what you want. You have that right as an opinion. I totally agree with Tesca. You are the first advocate for your children. And everybody on the outside, like you said, they're like, oh my goodness, they need to discipline their children. Or, oh my goodness. It's like they're embarrassed of your children when you don't even know me. So back to Ray Jr. It was really hard to hear. It wasn't the label or the autism. We didn't understand it. I don't understand a lot of it. So it was hard with dealing with the denial with my husband.
I didn't feel I was in denial. I just didn't accept it because I knew my son is adopted. We got him at 2 months old. And I knew that I had to find some kind of discipline, like you said, with my son, because I have a daughter that was 3 years old. And you're right. And the other child, especially if they're older, they're kind of left a little bit to the side. Absolutely. But we were such an hands-on family. We just were with everything. But the one thing with Ray Jr., I did not let him get away with nothing. However I treated Rachel, my daughter, is how he got treated. And the consistency that Tesca is talking about, if you don't develop that with a diagnosis, with whatever, and that's anybody, if you don't develop that consistency, especially with children on the spectrum autism, that respect must be ingrained from the beginning. Because if it's not, you basically have lost it. And it's only going to take God to bring that back. Because in body language, like she said, they can pick up on that. My son did not speak until he was 9.
Okay.
Yeah. And when he did speak, it was a whole sentence. Hey, where you guys going? So I turned around and I said, Ray, you've been able to speak all this time? He was like, just looking, because they can be very arrogant. But it takes a level of arrogance for a doctor to cut someone with a scalpel. So that's not a bad thing, that arrogance. So I said, why haven't you spoken? He said, I didn't have nothing to say. But he's been speaking ever since. And now when people see him, because a lot of times autism, you don't know it. It's not that you can see it. Like, I'm going to be honest. When you see the posters of special needs children, and it still to this day bothers me, they look like something's wrong with them. And I think that this country capitalized upon that. Because Ray Jr. don't look like anything is wrong. Again, we all got something wrong, but he didn't fit the profile of what people would call special needs. And I'm going to just use, like, my niece's Down syndrome. You can look and tell she has Down syndrome. But with Ray, there was intellectual disabilities. Not to compare, but they are definitely harder. In my opinion, I haven't seen a case today as bad as my son's. And I've been a teacher for 30 years. In the system, out the system, military, civilian, to this day. But we handled him accordingly. DCF was always involved in our house. I worked at the daycare center. They would come, they thinking they coming for a child that we've called. Miss Williams here, I knew them all by first name. I mean, go figure, because you are yelling, but then as they grow, that's going to pay off, because that's going to instill confidence in them, and you won't have to be as hard or work as hard because you're doing it now. I'm so proud of you, because a lot of parents don't see that. They just see you being so hard on them. That doesn't make no sense. But we got to be hard on all of them, especially in 2025. So I'm very proud of you. And that's not easy to admit, and a lot of people don't appreciate that. But let me encourage you, Tessa, you keep going.
and you have 2, 3 years apart.
Mhm.
I can't even imagine. With the one, I can't imagine. So kudos to you and all the parents out there like you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it was for those who don't understand
Mhm.
and what has been portrayed in society. I did not know initially that your boys were on the spectrum
Mhm.
because you know how they say, oh, they don't look you in the eye, they all walk on their tippy toes, and all this kind of stuff. And I remember they always gave me eye contact, and over time I would get, you know, a little closer to them and they would giggle and stuff. So I never actually knew until you told me. But I think my question to you would be, what is it that you would like people to know, or how would you like them to approach your boys?
Well, I would say, you know, talk to them just like you would talk to, you, anybody else. You just, talk to them like normal people. You don't have to baby talk them or talk slower. They can hear you. Even if my kids were nonverbal, they still hear you. They still understand, even if you think they don't. My kids are verbal, but, there are a lot of kids with autism that are nonverbal right now,
Right.
like your experience. But they still hear you. Just talk to them normal. Every child with autism is different. So, when you're approaching a child with autism, you don't immediately want to touch on them, go in for a hug, because for some, that's overstimulating, that's overwhelming, that's stressful for them. But, over time, as they get, used to you, they get to know you, they will open up more. And you will see, a bright child that you didn't know was in there. And they will warm up to you, just like my kids. Once they get to know you, they start saying things and having conversations with you. You're like, how do you know this? Like my kids talk about stuff that even their teachers are like, your kids are saying things and answering questions to things that the rest of the students in the class aren't, because they took the time, to let them get acclimated and get used to them and get used to the environment. And now they're opening up more. It just takes a little bit more time for a child or a teen or even an adult with autism to acclimate.
And what is interesting is I see a lot of things that say, oh, I was never diagnosed. I'm 46 years old and they did not diagnose me, early, and now I'm finding out. So now I have the answers to many questions. I think it was Chrisette Michelle. I was watching something recently where she was saying that people thought that she was odd because, or relationships that she was in, it's like the touching and stuff like that, she didn't understand, and it wouldn't have made sense to really say to them, well, this or that, when she didn't know. So it's interesting. I think that we all need to be educated on it. There needs to be, in the simulation, that was the whole point, is teaching. How are you going to teach the parents? How are you going to teach any caregiver that is with these children? Because obviously for the students, they didn't know either. Until they did the simulation, it was like, wow, I never thought that, or I didn't know that. So I think overall, it's a matter of education. And now there's a whole lot of stuff that's out there now. But once again, I think the main point is that people have to understand that they're all different. All different. A colleague of mine, this was just last week, she has, I think it's 6 or 7 kids. And they're grown, but one of them is autistic. But I was saying, tell me more. you know how, tell me some more about that. And she says, well, he drives and all this kind of stuff. So I think people just need to know, and very early on when I was teaching at this college, the two students had told me that their kids were on the spectrum. Now that was new for me because, as you had mentioned earlier, back in the day, the child is autistic. So the term that they're on the spectrum. So when they told me that, I was trying to figure it out in my mind because I am not a PEDS teacher. Trying to figure out what is the difference between being autistic and being on the spectrum. And for me, I was clueless about that. But the main point that they both had mentioned was if you start working with that child early, it makes a very big difference as to who they will be, right? So when my colleague told me that her son drove, and I think he's 30 now, I was like, I think overall people are just not aware of the kind of life. Like you said, they had mentioned to you, oh, he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. But I kind of feel like with any child, you never know. You never know. So I really appreciate both of you, sharing your stories and trying to educate us all about, the kids that are on the spectrum. Basically, they don't need to be treated any different than anyone else.
Absolutely.
With
I
each
would
person.
like to add, you said, where some girls can drive, they can have jobs, some of them can live on their own, but for some, that's not what life looks like. Some of them grow up and have to, live with a caregiver. Some of them, do have to be institutionalized if they're too aggressive.
Yes.
And some of them live at home forever. Life is not one size fits all. And if that's what your life looks like,
Good point.
it's okay as long as you are doing what you need, getting them the therapy that they need, and working with them that fits them the best.
That's right.
I think you made a good point earlier too, just to recap. It's important that you also know when to step back or take that time away, well, even for your kids in general, when you're overwhelmed or when you come home from work and you're really tired. I remember I used to tell my kids, Mommy's tired. Mommy's tired. Just so they don't feel like they're making you mad or they're the reason why. You know what I'm saying?
Like Tessa said, they feel that energy.
Right. So basically just to take yourself away from the situation, I think it's like the strongest point made, and that they're not all the same.
Yes.
Right?
And can I add to that? Because Tessa said something. She's right. I always just try to stick to the basics. Where we say they're not all the same, none of us are the same.
Wouldn't that be boring if we were all the same?
None of us. In anything, we're not the same. But there was a story I want to share to the world about, Tessa had mentioned it, when you approach a child with autism or whatever, you do that with all kids. You approach them, according to how you approach anyone else. However, no one should be approaching a child and they don't know them, and they immediately go to hug because they're hurt. Or they're like, look at me when I'm talking to you. That was me with my son. Look at me when I'm talking to you. And then he clearly said, me looking at you, me not looking at you, do you think I still don't understand what you're saying because I'm looking at you? Because we were taught, look me in the eye. If you look me in the eye, I know you're listening. He was like, no matter how loud you get, no matter what I'm doing, 10 different things, you're the one that can't seem to get it. And he was 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're intelligent because of how we're poured into, and of course, God makes everybody who they are and who they're going to be. We just have to grab hold to that and trust. But there was a story I do want to share again to the world. Goes back to the least restrictive environment and inclusion. That's what we called it back then. They didn't have inclusion then. Those kids were just, my child was just put in a least restrictive classroom because, again, they didn't know about it. So as he grew and we moved here, my daughter was listening to a teacher talk to my child, and she leaned in and she said, how are you today. My son looked at me, he said, Mom, does she have special needs? I said, yes, baby, she does. So think about that. I said, yes, baby, she does. And we went on about our business because that's who we are, my husband and I.
Oh boy, that's
Come
funny.
on. I mean, it's a lot of funny things that go on because, like Tessa said, they know things that they couldn't possibly know. It's not taught. And people say, well, we have to teach them. It's not them. We have to catch up to where they are. Because they're light years ahead of us because of sensory issues. The floor changes patterns. You know, the light, my son has epileptic. Every time the lights blink, he has a seizure. So, and the flapping, you know, every child is different when it comes to the spectrum. But again, a child is a child is a child. It's a human being. You treat them with love, kindness, respect, and consistency as we would
Bottom
do
line,
one another.
yes,
That's
definitely.
it. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the two of you.
It's been great to be here and to even talk about it and share it, you know, with other mothers. To be honest, I've never sat with another mother that had.
I thought it was a good idea to get you both on so that we could see it from different angles, you know, here and now versus, and I think that makes a difference. And I know this will inspire someone, like I always say, because we're all still learning, you know, and that's really the key at this point. So I want to thank you for being here. And this has been a really good topic to explore. And I guess we'll be following up at some point. Thank you for joining us.